Alrighty, everyone, welcome into another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. I am Mike Kadlick, joined as always by 98.5 The Sports Hub's Alex Barth. We are here to both look forward and look back as today, two Patriots, Devin McCourty was just held a press conference at Gillette Stadium. Me and Alex just got back from that. He has retired, and Dante Hightower also announces his retirement today. Before we get to, we're also going to reset free agency, and then we're going to do a Q&A at the end. Before we get to all that, I do want to shout out our new Patriots Beat sponsors at FanDuel. Sports betting is now legal in Massachusetts, and we have partnered with FanDuel as our new primary sponsor on the show. So you can do us a favor, as well as yourself, really, and go to FanDuel.com/Boston, where you can sign up for FanDuel. Deposit $5, deposit $10, bet $5, and you get $200 in bonus bets. So again, do that, help the show, FanDuel.com/Boston, and thanks to them for being our main sponsor. So having said that, Alex, we had quite the day. Like I said, we just got home, and Devin McCourty was honored by Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft as he now officially retires from the NFL. Same with Dante Hightower. Both guys, 3-time Super Bowl champions, two real cornerstone pieces of, dynasty number 2, if that's what you want to call it here. So,
yep.
We're looking forward, right? Patriots need to do all these new things, new coaches, new quarterback, new staff, whatever you call it. But today was a pretty cool day to also, look back and remind yourself what this team has really done over the last, 20 plus years in this region.
Yeah, it's bittersweet because it's cool to have these moments like this, especially for people of our age, right? Where this is the teams we grew up on. And maybe for me, that's more so the first dynasty, but it's also, it's sweet, but it's bitter because how many more of these events are we going to have?
I know.
Right? Dante Hightower retiring today. It would be cool if he got to do something like this. I think he certainly deserves it if he wants to. I know he's a little bit more of a private guy, so maybe it's not up his alley. We'll have Matthew Slater eventually. That's going to be a wild one. But,
yeah, well,
how many of these things do we have left? But Devin, they rolled out the red carpet. I thought they did an excellent job putting it together.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Great job on the highlight video, the Patriots media staff, video staff for doing that. I thought Bill told some great stories. I loved the one about his first meeting with Devin at Rutgers, where basically they were going over tape, and Bill's asking about the secondary, and Devin's giving him all the calls, and Bill goes, all right, this kid thinks he knows everything. So he starts asking about the linebackers. Then he starts asking about the defensive line.
He said he wanted to embarrass him. I thought it was awesome.
Right, I think that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
And McCourty had every single call, and Bill said, I'd never seen any sort of meeting like that. Never had any sort of meeting like that. So that, I love hearing the stories like that. So it was great, and it was a great way to honor a great player. And as both Bill and Robert Kraft said, we'll do it again in 4 years, right, when he gets his red jacket.
Yep.
But it's bittersweet because he was a massive, massive piece of those teams. I think in some ways it's fitting Dante Hightower announced his retirement today, that there's that overlap. But it's also, again, you watch that video and it's these guys, the video of the teammate tributes, and that's up on the Patriots Twitter account, and it's Stephon Gilmore, Kyle Van Noy, but then they go further back, right? Vince Wilfork, obviously Brady's in it, but you look at that group, it's like I remember when guys from the first dynasty started retiring, we got those videos and it was mostly players still on the team.
Yeah, right.
Now it's like all these guys are gone. And by the way, Julian Edelman had the best tribute video for Devin McCourty because he literally started. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, why is he in a Bed Bath & Beyond? And I figured I was confused. And he literally starts his video. Hey, Dev, big day for me at Bed Bath & Beyond. That was great. That was awesome.
That's funny. Yeah, the whole thing was super. I thought, like you said, the Patriots themselves, their media team did a great job of putting it together. I thought it was also awesome to see Jason McCourty was there, Devin's whole family. Robert Kraft gave Devin's wife, a bouquet of flowers and brought the kids on stage, and they were super excited to, kind of be there and see their dad get honored. Which, I thought that was, like you said, it was cool. It was nostalgic, but the other interesting part for me was just McCourty talking about how they kind of let him be a leader. The leadership and the off-field stuff and the smarts are really what they're going to miss more than the on-field play. And, Belichick talked about it with his meeting with Greg Schiano, who was the former Rutgers coach, or He's
Former
actually the
and
Rutgers
current.
coach now. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he's
was the
back.
Rutgers coach there. He's back, and so just how it was interesting that talking about the smarts, but then he says, and Shiano tells him, he can play corner, but he can also play safety. Like we needed him at safety
Right.
this year because we needed him at corner this year because we didn't really have any corners, but he can play safety as well. And Belichick basically said, well, we're going to need him at corner now too, so we're going to draft him as a corner and then see what happens there. He plays cornerback, goes to the Pro Bowl, and then goes to safety for the rest of his career. He's a 12-time captain as a safety, goes back to the Pro Bowl again. And so just, what he brought to this, this whole city, this franchise. I thought the cool thing, too, what he said about playing in Boston and just how,
Yeah.
you're here forever and you become sort of one of them and you're held on that pedestal. And he said that he always has kids come up to him and, tell him how many days of school they got to skip. To go to Patriots parades in Boston. So, I thought that was awesome. The whole thing was, like I said, it was just super. And it was cool too, going from a fan to now, still a fan, but covering the team, firsthand, just watching the highlight videos and, him being in the huddle and pumping those guys up. I thought it was just, it was cool to see. It was cool to see, him get emotional and really understand what he's meant to this team, and to be able to have a day was awesome. So, you can check out the recaps on that. Everything's on Patriots.com to Patriots YouTube. There was live stream. So go check that out. I encourage you to. The other guy I want to talk about is Dante Hightower quick, because he was also a 3-time Super Bowl champ. And, you talk about big plays in several Super Bowls. You look at the Seattle game and you think Malcolm Butler. And then you go to the Atlanta game and I guess you sort of think Hightower there, but you still think about Brady going drive after drive
it's the whole thing. It's like so much bigger than one player.
Exactly. But he had 2 monster plays in 2 monster spots in 2 Super Bowls that if he's not there, right place, right time, making dynamic plays, they might not have 2 less Super Bowls. So just wanted to get, you on Hightower as well, because I know that you're a football, historian. Let's hear it.
Yeah, well, no, like just on a personal note, one of my favorite Patriots, one of my favorite NFL players of all time for a number of reasons. When I first got into the draft, that was my senior year of high school. I was the sports editor for our school paper. And I did a mock draft and I had the Patriots taking Dante Hightower. So that was the first time a player and this was so many of the rules I follow now didn't apply back then. I liked Alabama, and that's the only reason I did that. But it was the first time ever a player I wanted them to take, they took. So that was cool. Also just love the way he played the game. In my mind, that's what a linebacker is. Big guy, physical, tone setter, leader, right? The fact he wore 54 after Brewski, I thought was so cool.
Yeah.
And just the way he approached everything, the way he embraced it, that's the mentality you want in a professional athlete, or really just anybody professionally, right? Just showed up, did his job, didn't really complain. They moved him all around. They changed his role. They increased his playing time. They decreased his playing time. And, he's hurt. None of that ever mattered. You knew that when 54 needed to make a play, whether it was the first snap of the game, whether it was the last snap of the game, whether he'd been in for 10 plays, whether he'd been in for 40 plays, whether he was at Mike, whether he was off the ball, whether he was on the edge, if you needed 54 to make a play, 54 was going to figure out a way to make a play. And the definition of a big game player, right? Only became better at that when the lights were bright. Played 17 playoff games in his career. They were 12-5, 3 rings, one of very few players to win multiple titles, both at the college and the pro level. That was a fun trivia question for me for a while, was who are the only 2 players on the Patriots roster to have both a college national championship and win a Super Bowl. And it was Tom Brady, because he sort of won one at Michigan, and Dante Hightower, who obviously won at Alabama. So, just personal favorite of mine. Great player. To me, he's not going to get Hall of Fame recognition like Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I get he only played 9 years. I'd vote for him. And the 9-year thing is crazy to think about, because I was thinking about it this morning. He feels like a guy that played 12, 13, 14 years.
Yeah, really. He does.
Because of how much of an impact he had. And maybe that's because he played an extra season's worth of playoff games, but he packed so much into a career that was less than a decade. And just a guy that I will always be a fan of. Again, like that. I know people talk about the modern linebacker and all that, and these guys that are like 220 and fly around the field. If I'm building a team, both what he brings on the field and what he brings off the field, I am going to find a place for Dante Hightower on my team every single time.
6'3", 260 is what he's listed at. So, like you said, monster on the inside. Too, like you say, not only was he consistent in the regular season, but guys who can step up in big moments is something that is just a legendary trait you can have, not only as a football player, but as a sports player in general. You think of guys like Kobe Bryant who just, get to that next level when it's needed most. And Hightower was the definition of that. 2-time BCS national champ, 3-time Super Bowl champion. He was also a second-team All-Pro in 2016, so a little bit of national recognition there. Like you said, probably not a Pro Football Hall of Famer, but a guy who, as far as having a shorter career but packing the most into it, I think of Gerard Mayo as well in that. Right? He didn't have a very long career, but he brought that impact for the 8 or 9 years that he played, and now obviously bringing it to the table now as a coach. But so Hightower, another legend, a guy who 4 years from now will probably also be inducted to the Patriots Hall of Fame, whether it's alongside Devin McCourty or in the same class or however they want to do it. But
so they might have to fudge that. I wonder if they'll count. Like they should count him as already a year in. Don't make us vote for McCourty or Hightower. It's going to be tough.
Yeah,
just count. True. Count. He's 1 year. The clock has already begun. That's how I would do it.
Yeah, that's true. He hasn't played what was the last 2 years or last year?
No, he played. He played in 2021. He hasn't played 2 of the last 3 because he sat out.
Oh, that's right.
He opted out of the pandemic year, came back in 2021, and then they didn't re-sign him last year. So.
Right.
He was never coming back. I had seen a couple of people be like, hey, they didn't sign him last year, but they need a linebacker. This was before free agency, and I think he was done. I think he was done at the end of the 2021 season. I don't think he officially announced it because, if there had been something at the end of the year where they needed a body. Remember, we were talking about how they left his locker open in the locker room throughout the season, but I think it's pretty clear now that this is it for him.
Yeah, I would agree. But a legendary career for both guys who will live in New England lore forever. So fun to get nostalgic, Alex. It brings whether it's fake or potentially real tear to my eye. But, great guys.
If it were up to me, this would be the whole show.
Yeah,
Patriots have had I think a couple thousand players. We could get through years just doing a former Patriot every other day.
Maybe someday, or maybe later on in this offseason, we'll get to some more nostalgia. But for now, let's talk free agency because not only are we looking back, but we have to look forward. And the Patriots, while they have filled some roster holes, there are still some needs. The big, first wave of free agency is gone. But here's where we're at with the Patriots, right? So they lose Jacoby Myers to the Raiders. They lose Jake Bailey to the Dolphins. They lose Damian Harris now to the Bills. But they bring in Juju Smith-Schuster, Calvin Anderson, Chris Board, Riley Reif, Mike Gesicki, James Robinson, and also re-sign John Jones, Jabril Peppers, Joe Cardona, Mac Wilson, Raekwon McMillan. So they have been busy, as well as Daniel Okale. So they have been busy, but they still need more, I think. And so there's two sort of I kind of want to get right into this, reset. We'll talk about where things are at across the league before we get into our Q&A. So have those questions ready, but don't ask them yet. According to Ian Rappaport, we'll get into wide receiver talk right away. Arizona Cardinals star wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. That trade market is looking to come into focus as talks are starting to ramp up. Similarly to Brandon Cook's trade, like he says, it will mean an altered contract. Same on the wide receiver front. Ben Albright from Denver says that the Browns continue to pursue possible trade talks for wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. He also mentions that New England has looked into Jeudy, but has not been willing to pay the requested price tag for the wide receiver. So just overall thoughts on the class, where they're at, Harris gone, Juju in, and then thoughts on the wide receivers as well as we get into this second week of the new league year.
Yeah, overall, like I've said, I think they made a bunch of really good complementary moves, but what is the big one? Right. I think we're all still waiting for the move that ties it all together. And that could be Jeudy. That could be Hopkins, certainly. Some thoughts on the moves around the league. So I guess first on Harris, that's a really good signing for Buffalo. They need a downhill back. They need a rushing option that's not Josh Allen. He's a really good fit there. That one actually kind of bummed me out because I'm a fan of his as well. But yeah, I don't think we have the full breakdown on the contract on that one yet, but I'll be interested to see because if it's similar to James Robinson money, I'm going to second guess that one. Because the biggest knock on Harris is he's hurt a lot, and it's not wrong, but you sign a guy coming, a year and a half removed from a torn Achilles, and at that point I'd go with Harris. But another interesting trend, Dalton Schultz, right, signed in Houston, 1 year, $9 million. He got a little more guaranteed than Gesicki did, but the tight end, we talked about Gesicki potentially being underpaid. Schultz was a guy who was the top tight end in this class coming in. It's funny.
Sounded like he turned down a long-term deal as well before and tried to bet on himself even further. I thought I saw that. He got
my guess is that, and by the way, so what I think this is all indicative of, the Gesicki contract, the Dalton Schultz contract, tight ends just not signing. I think the league is as high on this tight end class as we are, right? Teams don't want to pay tight ends right now because they know they can go get one in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round of the draft who's going to be a player. Right. So this is another sign that, as much as we on the outside talk about how much we like this tight end class, the league clearly, it seems, feels the same way. What else was there around the league? And then on the wide receiver stuff.
Yeah.
If I am the Cardinals or the Broncos, I am pissed at the Texans right now because
there it is. Just a few lower here. Yep.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks probably should have gone for more than that. I don't know how much more, but more. Top 150 pick for sure. And the reworked contract as well. So that brings the price further down because it's like, we got to trade for him. We also have to figure out a new deal with him. That's more on our part. So the price to me is for Hopkins, it should come down. And I don't know that they get him for this price, but if Brandon Cook's going for 5th and a 6th with a new contract, I don't know that I'm giving up 46 for Hopkins.
Right.
Maybe a pick swap, 46 for Hopkins and Arizona's third. And I don't know where their 3rd round pick is. Or off top of my head.
Around 76. Pick 76 for Hopkins.
Right. Or maybe it becomes 76 straight up for Hopkins or something like that. So I think the price on the wide receivers dropped with Hopkins. Judy's a little different just because he's so young. There's potential there, but it's pretty clear at this point the Broncos aren't going to get that 1st round pick. And look, they may be content in just saying, we only wanted to do this because we thought we could get a 1st. Right. There's a very real chance that that's their thought process, and they're not going to get a 1st, and he's just going to be there. And then they'll pick up his 5th-year option, or he'll be a free agent or whatever. But they're not getting 1st for him, not in this market. So the game of chicken continues.
So, keeping on the wide receiver talk with Brandon Cooks, right? So the Patriots, they have their slot now in Juju. They have, a double tight or 2 quality tight ends that can play in the passing game. You have your running backs. Again, quickly on Harris too. James Robinson may be more of a pass catcher than Harris, which might be kind of the way they were looking to go with Ramondre being
I don't think that's true though.
Okay.
Statistically, yes, Robinson has been in more of a passing role, but Harris did a very good job catching the ball out of the backfield at Alabama. They just never used him for that here, which is another reason why, and again, if the money's different, if Harris got significant guaranteed money, forget all of this. This is if the money's similar. 100%. I would have rather seen what Harris can do as a pass catcher than go pay James Robinson.
I would agree. But back to the receivers. So Brandon Cooks goes for this 5th and the 6th. Would you have done this if you're the Patriots?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I said last week, right, that this was a guy that I thought made a lot of sense. Gives him that speed dynamic. He's a veteran, but he's not old. And then you look, I think he got $12 million guaranteed or something, or it's a $12 million cap hit or whatever it is on the new contract, which I know that number probably petrifies a lot of people for a wide receiver. That's very manageable money. I would have been in on this 100%.
Yeah, I think it made a lot of sense. It would be a good fit, especially if, I heard a lot of talk about just lately with Taikwon Thornton. I think Tom Curran said it, where if you trust Taikwon to be that downfield pass threat, you're number one, the burner that can take the top off, then maybe you don't need another move. But if you don't, then that's sort of the role they're looking for, is that number one. Not so much taking the top off of defense with a guy like Hopkins, right? But your outside
coverage.
Receiver dictating coverage. Exactly.
Yeah.
Cooks could be that for this price.
This to me tells me that they have something. It tells me one of two things. Well, it tells me one thing that could mean two things.
Okay.
I don't think they were outbid here. I feel like they have something bigger in mind where they said, all right, we don't need to give up 2 picks for Brandon Cooks. We're going to do this other thing, whatever it is, that's going to be better anyway. Now, that could be they've seen Taikwon working out at the facility and they're like, okay, he's ready. We don't need to bury him. Or it could be, if Dallas is asking for a 5th for Cooks, well, we'd rather give up a 4th for Hopkins at that point. So whatever, right? It could be something like that. So I don't think this is them just passing on a wide receiver. I think this was just not now. Whether that's right or wrong, we'll see. They have to now make that other move, right? And to the Tom Curran point too. There's guys like Devontae Parker and Kendrick Bourne that we don't know how big their role is going to be.
Right.
And right now it looks like they're going to have a big role, but it looked like Kendrick Bourne was going to have a big role last year, and then he very much didn't. So even if they added a guy like Cooks, to me, I don't know that that's burying Taikwon as much as it's making Parker or Bourne, as much as I don't want Bourne to be expendable. Everybody knows how I feel about him. But to me, that's, now Parker, Bourne's a potential camp trade or camp cut, open up some money.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Like you said, I would agree that it kind of looks as if, or you would hope, right, that they're not being negligent on the wide receiver front and that that's not their only move, but that they still think there's something more, not only more, but something bigger out there. And so it's funny, as Bill Belichick walks off the stage today, he goes, Dev, can I get out of here? And it kind of, it makes you think, right? Is he going to, call somebody up and make another move right now? So I don't know if it's going to happen as soon as today, as soon as during the show, but it seems like there is potentially another move in their back pocket. Anything else? I guess we have to bring it up, Alex, and it's Lamar Jackson. And I know you probably don't want to talk about it, but it was brought up by ESPN this week. Jeremy Fowler said that the Patriots are a potential wild card for Jackson. And I've thought this over, and I've tweeted about it before, just originally when the Lamar saga came to the forefront. The Patriots were the betting favorite to go get him. Then that obviously came down. They've made these moves around, or seems like to be around, Mac Jones. You bring in a Bill O'Brien who runs a system that fits his skill set well. You bring in guys in Juju Smith-Schuster, et cetera, that can work around Mac. But look, there's still no offer sheet out there for Lamar Jackson. And maybe this is me overthinking it, or maybe it's me not thinking about it enough. But why not maybe throw your hat in the ring for this guy when he seems to be available and there's no real traction on that front just yet?
So I'll tell you why not. And I don't necessarily, Mark Bertrand made a great point about this earlier today. And I'm not necessarily saying I agree with this or not, but here's why not. Because you offer to pay Lamar a boat ton of money, and then the Ravens match.
Yeah.
What happens with Mac Jones?
Right.
Yeah. And I think, and now, would I risk the relationship with Mac Jones to get Lamar? Personally, I think that relationship might already kind of be a sinking ship based on everything that happened last year. Might be worth the risk. That's probably part of the reason why. I think the other reason why is, honestly, if they're going to do it, and by the way, I think this applies to most NFL teams. This is not a Patriots specific take. Mm-hmm. If Lamar doesn't re-sign in Baltimore, if he does end up elsewhere, I don't think it's a team signing him to an offer sheet and the Ravens not matching. I think it's him finding a deal with another team, signing his offer sheet, then getting traded, and then getting an extension.
Okay.
So, and there's a million reasons that cap logistics and stuff that just it makes more sense for both sides in the majority of cases if that's the way this gets done. right? Like we talked about this when he first became available. Miami seems like a fit. Well, they don't have a first round pick, so they technically can't sign to an offer sheet. No, but they could go talk to him and say, hey, if you sign your offer sheet in Baltimore, we'll work out a trade with them, and then we'll give you this contract.
Right.
So it's a very, very unique situation. Talking about Lamar's whole free agency.
Right.
I think that I think at times the NFL is a little bit, there is a rhythm where, we've seen this situation, and this is all teams, we've seen this situation before, we know how to handle it. I think teams are really doing a lot of research and self-study on this Lamar thing because there really is there's no playbook to go off of.
Right.
Former MVP quarterback under the age of 30 years old, hits free agency. He doesn't have an agent.
Representing himself. Yeah, that was...
Right. There's so much to sort of just figure out. Like, if you're sitting there, right, in a front office, how do you even approach that? How do you even start to approach that?
Right.
And so I think that's part of the delay with this too. Is there some lack of interest? Not lack of interest. Do teams, is there maybe a wink, wink, nod, nod across the league that he's not getting a fully guaranteed contract? Yeah, there might be something like that. Mm-hmm. But I also think it's just such a unique situation that teams kind of have to figure out, even if they want to approach him.
Yeah.
Well, how
They're
do
treading
we
lightly.
do that? Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So it's in it because, and by the way, what I just said about Mac about, well, if you sign him to the offer sheet and then the Ravens match, could be said about a lot of teams. I use Miami as an example, right? It could be said about Tua.
Right.
So you have to be really, I think, you have to be really creative if you're an NFL team in figuring out how you're going to approach this.
Right. It's not like you can, like you outbid. You can't really get into a bidding war with Baltimore. Like you kind of can, but it's not the player's decision in a free agency situation. Right.
No, but there wouldn't be a bidding war. Because Baltimore at this point isn't going to offer him a contract. They've offered him what they're going to offer him.
But I'm saying, like, as far as not a bidding war, right? But Baltimore will always have the ability to match it. You can't. I mean, I guess in theory you could pay out the rear for Lamar, but they're not going to do that either. So you're right. It's interesting. Well, and
I mean, my theory on this whole thing is the Ravens tried for months to work out a contract with him, couldn't do it, and like I think they're essentially just outsourcing it.
Yeah.
One of you 31 teams figure out what the contract is, and then they're just going to match it. They're just right. Lamar, you go figure out what you're worth, and we'll match it. It's a like the Patriots do that thing, right? Where it's like, all right, well, you go out, see what you're worth, come back to us with your best offer. If we can match it, we'll do it. But they formalized it by putting that tag on him and saying, well, no matter what the best offer it is, we're going to have a chance to match it. So,
and if they really don't like it, they can get 2 first-round picks in return.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I think at the end of the day, he goes back to Baltimore after another team figures out the contract, which again goes back to my theory. The Steelers should offer him a bag and just see what happens.
Yeah, that would be fascinating. That's another one where you might alienate Kenny Pickett too. But at that point, who cares? Make it fun. Right. So that's our little free agency reset. Let's now answer all of your questions. So please fill up the chat. As many questions as possible. Anything you got. We got about a half hour here. We'll try to get to as many as possible. It's Patriots, free agency, anything you want. While you guys ask your questions, I want to talk about our friends at FanDuel once again because Massachusetts, you need to listen up. The wait is finally over. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is now live in Massachusetts. New customers in Mass can get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just join at FanDuel.com/Boston. You can now bet on your favorite sports from the money line to point spreads, player props, and more. It's the best app on the market. It's super bright. It's super easy. They make it so simple to find your bets, place your bets, use your bonus money. You rarely have to ask any questions because it's basically all answered for you on the app. So go and use it. It's super safe and super secure, super easy to use. And don't miss that chance, like I said, to go get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and present in Mass. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Hope is here. Gambling helpline ma.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Again, that's FanDuel.com/Boston. America's #1 sportsbook is here now, live in Mass. So go deposit on there and grab your $200 in bonus bets. All right, Alex, let's get to it.
I got one I want to start with, actually. Or do you?
Perfect. No, go for it.
Okay.
This was good today.
Who was it? It was Jeremiah, right? Daniel Jeremiah.
For those just listening, for those only listening, the question is Bijan Robinson at 4. What are 14? What are our thoughts? Yeah.
Daniel Jeremiah from NFL.com, from NFL Network, put out his mock draft day. His Patriots taking Bijan Robinson at 14.
Yep.
And people are livid.
Livid.
Why would the Patriots take a running back at 14? They can't do that. They shouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. Blah, blah, blah. Nobody's bringing up the fact that if they take a running back at 14, it's not going to be Bijan Robinson. It's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yep.
I didn't see one person say that today. Why? And I personally think Gibbs is a better back, but he's more well-rounded back. Either way, they're not taking a running back at 14, but my biggest critique on this isn't even Jeremiah has them taking a running back at 14. It's that he has them taking the wrong running back at 14.
Well, you bring that up, right? And during the draft, or during the combine out in Indy, I was listening and watching.
Yeah.
And I thought they were talking about Jahmyr Gibbs on the broadcast, and I tweeted a quote from Daniel Jeremiah.
Oh, that's right.
That said he wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots would draft who I thought he said Jahmyr Gibbs at 14. It ended up being Robinson.
So he did this just to spite you.
Potentially, yeah. So DJ, responded to my tweet last month, whenever it was, said, no, I was talking about Bijan. I corrected it, this, and that. And then he ends up putting Bijan in his mock draft today. And so he actually tweeted at me and someone else again today because someone said how stupid it was, that, it shouldn't be a thing. And basically DJ said that James Robinson does not rule out them
Wait, he tweeted that at you?
Bijan. It was at the response to my tweet today.
Oh, okay.
And so because I quote tweeted DJ's draft and said that he has the Patriots taking Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
He says that James Robinson does not rule it out, and that essentially his reasoning for it was that when everybody zigs, Belichick zags, and maybe they bring in Robinson. But again, I can't reason with taking a running back early, just like I can't reason giving a running back a second contract that's worth a lot of money. So at the end of the day, if they do take a running back this early, I agree with you, it should be Jahmyr Gibbs because of his pass catching ability. He would mesh with Ramondre much better, and he also has worked with Bill O'Brien before. Yeah. Having said that, I don't think they're going to do it.
As much as I hate it, the Zig versus Zag pick to me is Michael Mayer. That's the Zig. They're just not going to take a running back this high. All right. Yeah. More draft questions here. Not what we think will happen at 14. What position do we, or not what we want to happen at 14? What do you think the Patriots will end up doing at 14?
Okay.
And I mean, and we'll do another mock draft on Thursday. This is generally how we approach it, right? Nobody cares what we're going to do. We're not the ones making decisions. We're trying to project what they're going to do. That being said, and I think I talked about this on Friday. I might not have.
Okay.
I talked about it on the Sports Hub Patriots podcast yesterday. You can check that out on 985sportshub.com. Mike, is 2 years enough of a time for something to be considered a trend or a pattern?
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think in the NFL it is, because 2 years is a long time. So if you look at the years that Matt Groh has been, say, running, I mean, obviously Bill plays a big role in this, but running the draft board. In 2021, he was the director of college scouting. Dave Ziegler, who is the director of player personnel, was a pro personnel background. Like that was Matt Groh was the draft guy that year. And now Groh is the director of player personnel, and he was last year. So what do those two drafts have in common, specifically in the first round?
You did mention this on the show.
Yeah, okay. So I don't need to do the whole spiel then, but
in
2021, the biggest hole on the depth chart was quarterback, and they took the best quarterback available. Some would argue they overdrafted him, but they took the best quarterback available. Last year.
With their first pick.
Correct. Yeah. Last year, what was the biggest hole on the depth chart? It was guard. And you might say, well, corner was a bigger need, or receiver was a bigger need, or tackle, or linebacker, fine. Throw out positional value. If you were just trying to write out the depth chart, heading into the draft last year, their starting guard was Canadian Football League All-Star Drew Desjardins. They need a left guard. They took the best left guard on the board. That was Cole Strange. You could argue they overdrafted him, but that's what they did. If that's Matt Groh's strategy, I think and this, by the way, changed. Heading into free agency, tackle. I kept saying it's their biggest need. They're going to take a tackle. They give Riley Reef $4.5 million guaranteed. They signed Calvin Anderson. They cut Jalen Mills. I think the biggest need is now corner, specifically like a big boundary corner. And whether it's Christian Gonzalez, who it won't be because he'll be off the board, or Devin Witherspoon or Joey Porter, who I think they should have a shot at getting one of. Mm-hmm. I think they're going with the corner in the first round as things stand right now.
Yeah. I think so. I used that reasoning actually in my latest mock draft on CLNSmedia.com. You can go check that out. I took a corner in the first round for the team in Joey Porter Jr. You can go read the whole thing on the site. But I guess what I think / want to happen are kind of the same here now, because I think that reasoning makes a lot of sense where the biggest hole is corner. And so they go take that corner. I also think I want that to happen because they've filled wide receiver a little bit more here with Juju. Looks like there might still be another move in the holster. I know it's not there yet, but we'll see. And then tackle, right? They haven't made a huge splash, but they've made moves and they've added depth. Yeah. So it feels like they can kind of piece it together and go from there. So I think, like you said, the biggest hole is corner. That's been the trend. As a betting man, I tend to stick to trends and follow trends, and that's how you can win money. And that's how the Patriots can win games, is by sticking to their trends. And I think, like you said, the biggest hole is corner. The more I think about it, the more I think they're going to go cornerback here. So, we'll see where it goes, but I think that would make the most sense for the team. I have another one here that now I can't find it, which is too bad because it was a good one. And sorry, give it a sec.
Here, how about this one? In the meantime, would you rather give up draft picks for Hopkins or sign Odell Beckham and keep the picks? I don't have access to the medical information, right, about Odell Beckham, but if his knee checks out, rather have Odell Beckham. He's actually a year younger.
Yeah.
He's more that explosive, game-breaking kind of player. I'd rather have Beckham. Now, if there's still red flags on his knee, which honestly I think there might be, considering he hasn't signed yet, give me Hopkins. 2 ACL tears in a year and a half on a 30-year-old receiver is not necessarily a gamble you want to take with big money. But if Beckham's knee checks out, give me Beckham.
Yeah, I think I agree, but the health is what scares me. And so, coming off a second ACL tear, even if it checks out, you could be susceptible for more, where D-Hop has never really had a true, grueling injury, right?
He's coming off a PED suspension, so there is some risk there.
That's fair too. But even when he came back last year, he played 7 games and was dominant for them. So I guess I agree. Taking it value for value. With the picks included, you might be better off going OBJ. But he almost may. It sounds like he might want to command more money as well. So it's an interesting back and forth. But I think Hopkins. I'll go Hopkins. I'll go the other side. I'll go Hopkins. Yeah. So here's the question I had that I was thinking of. If the Patriots get D-Hop, do you think Juju turns into his 2018 self? Because, that's sort of what we're looking for here, right? Juju as a number one hasn't been.
That was the year he had the 1,000-yard season, right?
It was his first. It was his only 1,000-yard plus season. He had 1,400. He had 111 catches, and he was number 2 to Antonio Brown. The other years after that, he's always kind of been a number one. He wasn't a number one in Kansas City this year. Obviously, he was behind Kelsey, but it was his second highest receiving year this year was 933 yards. And so you would think that he can get back to that if he's not the one dictating coverage, instead the one opening up with somebody else dictating the coverage like a D-Hop, then Juju can return to that self. Is he going to go for 1,400 yards in this offense? I wouldn't say that much, but I think he can be as productive, I guess, on a per-game basis as he was in 2018.
Yeah, I don't know that he's an 1,100-yard guy, but he will be in the 700, 800, 900-yard range, which is probably about where they need him if they get a guy like Hopkins. If they don't get a guy like Hopkins, they need him to be a 1,000-yard receiver.
Yeah.
But adding Hopkins only makes him better. That's a fact. I'll pull this one up real quick here. When's the next Patriots Press Pass mock draft? Thursday. Yep. So, and it's going to be every Thursday from here until the draft will be the plan. So we are in
mark those calendars.
Right. Full mock draft season at this point.
Yep. Let's see. Trent Brown. Sounds like they can save some cap with trading Trent Brown. I believe they can save cap by cutting him as well. And so, will the Patriots trade Trent Brown? They save a lot of cap doing so, is the question. I guess it depends on what they do in the draft too, because if they can bring in, a left tackle in the draft first round, then maybe they cut Trent or they try and trade Trent. If they don't, I think they need to stick it out, because when he's on, he can be a very good left tackle, and you almost have to play the numbers game there and take your risk with Trent if you don't get another guy who can play the position.
Yeah, I think they're holding on to Trent at this point.
Yeah,
me too. They invest heavily in right tackles. Prior to free agency, it made more sense. Unless they trade for Judy and he wants like a massive extension.
Right.
The amount of money you're opening up, and they'll open up money at some point, but there's nobody left to use it on, right? Like, you can't, there's no more big splash signings to make. So at this point, you just hold on to him, at least to camp. And if he looks really bad in camp, maybe you make a move then. But yeah, I think at this point, it's worth keeping him.
Yeah. While I appreciate this comment, Patrick, I want to give Mac Rowe his flowers a little bit here, because they've had a really good couple drafts. The comment is Alex Barth, Mike Kadlick, better than Mac Rowe. Mac Rowe's been really good as the director of player personnel, and since he's sort of headed up, this draft operation. They brought in Mac, Barmore, Ramondre, both rookie Joneses at corner last year. Pierre Strong looks like he could, potentially have a role here. Bailey Zappi, look, wherever you stand on the Mac versus Zappi saga that happened last year, I'm personally team Mac. Mac's the starter of this team, but Zappi is a quality backup. They just cut Brian Hoyer. Clearly they believe in Zappi. So I think Mac Rowe's been great in his role so far, drafting guys.
Oh, I mean, I think he's been great. He didn't have a really high bar to clear from the previous couple drafts, but
right.
No, I'm a huge fan of the work he's done so far. We'll see if he can do it again this year, but I think there's this idea that you have to hit on every pick in the draft to have it be like a good draft. Even teams we consider good drafting teams don't hit on every pick. There's that, and everybody points to that one year, it's like 2016, that the Saints drafted like 6 Pro Bowlers and 8 picks or something like that. The other 2 guys are contributors. That's not realistic. Hit on your first round pick, hit on at least one of your 2 top 50 picks, and hit on 1 or 2 guys on day 3. That's a good draft. It's not a great draft, but that's good. If you do that, you can maintain a core, basically.
Right.
And they haven't quite done that. They haven't hit on first round picks. Day 2's kind of been their best day. The day 3 picks have not panned out. So that to me is kind of what I look at. Did you hit on the first round pick? Did you get at least one other legit top 100 pick? And then did you find a guy or 2 on day 3? You should be hitting 100% of the time in round 1, over 50% of the time in round 2. And if you can get around 50 in day 2, around 50 100% on day 1, over 50 on day 2, right? If you only have 2 picks, you should go 1 and 2. If you have 3 picks, you should go 2 or 3. And then can you get a couple of players on the 3rd day? That's pretty much what I look at as like a baseline successful draft.
Yep. Alex, what will they do about safety? McCourty obviously retires today.
Yes.
I'll leave it to you to go first.
Yeah, so I think Taylor Rapp would be a great signing. I saw some people asking about him earlier on. The fact that he came here for a meeting and he then went elsewhere for a meeting and he still hasn't signed, I feel like the longer he goes unsigned, the less likely it is he comes here, right? So I would love to see him here, but I feel like if they were going to sign him, they would have signed him by now. So we'll see what happens there. I don't think they're opposed to handling it in-house, maybe adding a draft pick, but I'd like to see them sign a guy like Taylor Rapp.
I think so too. I think prior to Jalen Mills being cut, that it made sense to go in-house. You can move Jonathan Jones back there rather easily and keep Mills at corner. But now that Mills is gone, I feel like Jones is going to have to play cornerback. So they're really missing that, true free safety role. That Nick Scott, who was the other Rams safety, ended up signing with Cincy. Yes. And that's where Rapp visited as well. So it sounds like maybe, no, I don't want to say New England's the only suitor for Rapp because guys, go elsewhere without a visit, right? But
Right.
according to Mike Reese, it sounds like there is an offer on the table for Rapp from the Patriots, so maybe he's just waiting it out. But I think Rapp would be the best way that they can fill it right now. Maybe they do it through the draft. Maybe they go Brian Branch, but I think Rapp's the best way to do it, and I think that's a way they can go.
All right, I'll let's go with this one here. Which tight end would we draft with the first 2 picks? To me, there's only one tight end that makes sense for them in the top 100, and that's Darnell Washington.
Yeah, it is.
whether it's Michael Mayer, whether it's Dalton Kincaid, whether it's Luke Musgrave, whether it's Tucker Kraft, they have these like hybrid tight end slot receiver kind of guys.
Right.
They do. And if you're, and you may say, all right, well, they're both on 1-year deals. Well, then you can take a guy later on like Zach Kuntz, who maybe isn't as polished as Dalton Kincaid, but I think has similar, if not the same upside, because that guy's going to sit on the bench this year anyway. Unless you're like one of these teams taking a quarterback to like plan ahead, right?
Right.
Top 100 picks should be guys who make an immediate impact. And the only tight end that there's a significant role for in 2023 is Darnell Washington because of his blocking ability.
Exactly.
So I don't know that I don't think he's going to get to 46. I don't know that I'd take him at 46. I certainly wouldn't take him at 14. I'd probably take him at 46, but I wouldn't take him at 14. So it's going to be interesting to see where he falls, but he's really the only one for me in the top 100. If you want to go later on, you want to start talking about Sam Laporta, you want to start talking about Zach Kuntz, you want to start talking about, I think it's Jaden Willis from Oklahoma. That's a different conversation. But as far as top 100, Darnell Washington.
I agree. It's the blocking. Gesicki's not a great blocker. Neither is Hunter Henry. The real blocking tight end last year was Jonnu Smith. He's the one that gave you the most, and now he's gone. They still need a guy who can do that, and I think Washington would be the guy. It's that simple. All right, next one, Alex. We talk about drafting corner at 14. You've said it before. I tend to agree that I don't think Christian Gonzalez is the best corner in the class, and I don't think he's going to be there at 14. They may have their pick of a Devin Witherspoon or Joey Porter Jr. Is it worth trading up for Gonzalez, or are you okay sitting back and taking one of the other two?
I'm okay sitting back. This is a deep draft. You're going to have to give up another top 100 pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, as much as I like Christian Gonzalez, if it was last year, I was in the boat that, because some people thought Devin Singletary was going to fall. Hey, if he starts to fall, maybe that's a guy you move up for. But I didn't like the depth as much in that draft. No, if you can get Devin Witherspoon or Joey Porter, you did very well.
Right.
There's no need to you're going to get a guy who has the potential to be a shutdown corner. There's no need to push like that.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think that they're too close, the three of them. Like, I don't think it's Gonzalez by a wide margin. So I think you're fine waiting, not wasting another pick, and sticking with. I mean, Joey Porter Jr. has been my guy the whole time. So I'm okay with that as well. Let's see. Would you still draft Jackson Smith and Jigba if he was available at 14, even after the Juju signing?
No, pretty much because of what I just said about the tight ends.
Yeah.
You got to have a role for these guys. And it's tough. Both of them on the field, there's really not a lot of speed. And there's not there's a lot of overlap, but you can't necessarily have two of those route trees on the field at the same time because you need space.
Right.
So as much as I like JSN as a player, you just paid Juju Smith-Schuster all this money. You made him your headlining signing of free agency. He needs to be on the field at least 80% of the time.
Yep.
Well, then JSN's not playing. So what are you doing with that pick? No, I think JSN's out now.
I think so too. We talk about Judy and Juju overlapping a bit. Judy can play outside almost. I don't want to say he's done that exclusively by any means, but he's played a lot of outside receiver in Denver. JSN is more of a true slot who could kind of play both, but there's going to be a lot more overlap in JSN and Juju's game than there would be in Juju and Jerry Jeudy. A lot of J's here. JSN, Judy, Juju.
Yes.
So it gets a little confusing. But yeah, as much as I like JSN, I think the Juju signing might have taken that off the table. Let's talk punter. I tweeted my mock draft that I talked about the other day on CLNS, and I think 2 or 3 people in my comments said, Alex is going to be pissed that you didn't take Michael Turk. Where's the punter? Why haven't you drafted a punter? Alex, what are they going to do about Punter? They just let the Bailey guy go.
Yeah, I think they could wait and do it through DFA. They've certainly done that before at positions of need, and it gets interesting. I think in such a strong punter class,
Michael, it is a strong punter class.
Whether it's, I don't think it's as strong as last year, but Michael Turk, Bryce Behringer, Adam Korsick are all good options. I think you see them end up with a 5th round pick and take one of those 3 guys there.
Yeah. We'll see. I think they could draft. I like the idea of Turk. I think what you tweeted it when you guys were out in Vegas that Belichick was like eyes locked on Michael Turk during tri-ball practice. Yeah. So it feels like that could be an option there. We'll see. They drafted Jake Bailey in the 5th round. So, I mean, why not them do it again, right?
Yeah. Well, that's their special teams round. They took Cardona there as well.
When did they take Rohrwasser? Was that a 5th round pick as well?
Yeah.
I think so. Yep. Interesting. All right. Let's get a few more in here before we get off. Sorry, just
here. Well, you're looking quick. What time's the mock draft show on Thursday? Okay. Sometime between 5 and 7, like usual. TBD, but somewhere in that window. Follow at Patriots CLNS on Twitter. Or follow Mike. He'll have it on Thursday when we decide.
Yeah, probably 6 or 7, I'd say. Get Josh Downs if he falls. What do you think of Josh Downs? I guess he's kind of a slotty guy as well, right?
Yeah, I really like Josh Downs as a player. I thought that was going to be their guy. I thought he was a great replacement for Jacoby, but it's the same thing I just said about JSN. Like, it's a little easier of a sell because it's not the 1st round pick. You're probably using 46 there, but he's not going to play a ton if everybody's healthy, and it's just the problem. These top 100 picks need to be impact guys, and I just don't see how he's an impact guy on this roster.
Yeah. Let's talk draft. I've thought about this one a little bit.
Let's talk draft. What have we been doing?
Yeah, okay, but let's talk not just Patriots draft.
I know.
Who's the 1st round sleeper to unexpectedly fall in the entire 1st round?
Does Jalen Carter still count as unexpectedly?
That's who came to mind, but it's not really a sleeper anymore. I feel like that's kind of just going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think he goes in the 1st round at this point. Yeah. Who is? I think there's a chance we're all way too high on Tyree Wilson.
Okay,
it's a pure upside pick, and there's all these teams that are going to take quarterbacks, and I think the tackles are going to go higher than expected. And I don't know. I don't I see everybody putting him in the top 10. I don't see it, and that's just me.
Yeah,
but I don't know that he falls to the Patriots, but I think Tyree Wilson maybe drops a little bit.
Yeah. My thoughts go to Michael Mayer. Everyone's so high on him, and I just think that with the class being so deep, I don't see why anyone's going to jump on Mayer that early.
Yeah.
I've seen him at 15. I've seen him at 14, in and around that range. The other guy I think of is maybe Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison was considered a potential top 10 pick. Post-combine, he's fallen a little bit. I've seen him in the 20s around the mock draft database. So we'll see. There's going to be a lot of teams go for the receivers at the back end of the 1st round because you get to pick up the 5th-year option. They sort of go in a tumble as well. As soon as one goes, they go like hotcakes. So we'll see what happens there. But I think Addison could fall a little bit as well. All right. We'll take a few more before we get out of here. Thoughts on Brian Branch, Alex? I don't know if you think they would take him at 14. Is he too slow? A Bama guy. The Patriots like drafting those guys from Bama. But what do you think about Brian Branch in general?
Yeah, no, I like Brian Branch. I think he's definitely in play at 14 for the Patriots. I could see them liking him. He's a way you replace Devin McCourty. A lot of what Bill said about Devin McCourty today applies, at least on the surface, to Brian Branch. Smart player, instinctual player, a leader, all of that. They kind of screwed him over with the 40. They had him run with the corner, so his time looked really slow.
Yeah.
He had a solid time for a safety. I'm not worried about his speed.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a fan of his, and I'm a fan of his teammates in Jordan Battle as well. So I think Branch is a little bit better, but I could see them going with either one of those Alabama guys. We'll talk tight end one more time. Luke Schoonmaker, potential 4th round pick for this team. He worked with the Patriots at the Shrine Bowl in Vegas. I wonder if that would be their pick, right, at tight end, because they worked with them in the past. They're not going to jump on one. They just signed Gesicki, so there's potential there for Schoonmaker. I don't want to say, and I talked about this on Twitter, that maybe it was a little far-fetched, but tight end kind of feels like a luxury position now because they have 2 solid ones. But They do need a blocking tight end, and they're also both on one-year deals. So maybe they do need one more than I originally thought, which is why I like the idea of Darnell Washington if he gets the 14. But what do you think of them taking Shoemaker?
Yeah, again, it's that project day 3 tight end, Schoonmaker,
Yeah.
Cameron Latu, that whole, he fits that description as well, sure.
Yeah. Blake Freeland, talk about him. I like him. I don't know what you think, but I think it would be a decent pick depending on where they can get him.
Yeah, if they can get him in the 3rd round, sure. How old is he? He's like older, right? Now,
it's a good question.
That doesn't mean they won't take him. Sorry, I don't have access to my keyboard the way my thing's set up there. He's only 22.
Oh, wow, okay.
Out of B, because the BYU guys are usually older.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if they can
22.
get him on day 3, I like his upside. You're probably looking at Riley Reif being your starting right tackle for the year at that point. I don't know that he's a guy that's going to be ready as a rookie. But yeah, that kind of pick I think is in play. I'd rather see them go with a guy like Darnell Wright in the 2nd or trading back up late in the 1st, getting DeJuan Jones, but I wouldn't be the worst pickup. I like Freeland. People he's in that group with like Matthew Bergeron. I like him better than Bergeron.
Yeah.
But I'd like seeing get a little more aggressive a tackle than that.
Yeah, fair. I like this question. Do you think there will be a surprise wide receiver traded like Hill last offseason? And if so, who do you think it might be?
It was supposed to be Jerry Jeudy, and then
and
everybody else started talking about it.
Yeah. Brandon Aiyuk, maybe?
No, they're not going to trade him. Because they have a championship window, and
that's fair. Yeah, but the Chiefs had I guess they didn't really need.
The Chiefs had Patrick Mahomes,
and then they just won it without him. So okay.
I don't know, maybe Devonta Smith, but I think they run that thing back. I think the guys we think are available at this point are pretty much the guys who are going to be available.
Yeah, I think so too. Deonte Banks, cornerback, believe ran the fastest 40. I think he's going to be a 1st-round pick. I don't think he's going to fall to the 2nd after his combine performance. But I think he's on the shorter side as well. I might be wrong on that. I don't know his height off the top of my head, but
nice 6'2".
Is he that tall?
Yeah, this is the Maryland kid.
Yeah,
he's 6'2". I want to get his exact combine. Oh no, sorry, 6 foot. 6 foot, ran a 4.35. Now he's gonna be a 1st-round pick.
I think so too.
He's not gonna fall. The other Maryland kid might
6'2".
fall, but he's gonna be a 1st-round pick.
Yeah. All right, we'll do one last question, and then we'll get out of here and prep for Thursday's mock draft. Here's we have a food question again. They use Beyond Meat. Do the Patriots swing a star on draft day? Guys like A.J. Brown went last year. Star was traded. There were some Aaron Rodgers rumors a few years ago that never amounted to anything. I love those draft day star trades. I think they're fascinating. Do you think the Patriots end up swinging one in late April?
Only if it's Jerry Jeudy and it gets to the point where they're like, maybe the guy they want comes off the board before 14 and they call the Broncos and they say, you know what, just take the pick.
Or they trade back and trade the pick.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just not, that's not how they operate.
Yeah.
It's really not how they operate. So I don't see it.
I think so too. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us tonight and listening to us get all nostalgic about both Devin and Hightower. It was a good time down there in Gillette today. So you can check out all our coverage on that. I wrote about it on CLNSmedia.com. Alex has something on Sports Hub too. So check those out. We will be back Thursday for a mock draft. But before then, check out FanDuel.com/Boston because you can get $200 in bonus bets when you place that first $5 bet. So please check it out. Helps us out. Good sponsor, great sponsor for us, the whole shebang. And so we'll be back on Thursday. We'll keep you updated with the time. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Kadlick. You can follow him at Real Alex Barth. We'll keep you updated on when that's going to come. And like I said, read our stuff, and thank you guys for watching. We will see you on Thursday for Mock Draft 3.0 here on Patriots Beat this offseason. So excited for it. So set those calendars and